Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and honestly, deeply misunderstood phenomenon that completely shapes politics around the world. We're talking about political bhakti, or political hero worship. Have you ever wondered why we take ordinary humans, people we literally vote into power, and eventually start treating them like literal gods? Well, let's unpack this whole concept today.
So, do we actually treat our politicians like gods? History shows us that for centuries, rulers and politicians have been linked to divine powers in one way or another. From the god-kings of the ancient world to the leaders of modern democracies, there's always been this incredibly deep psychological link between power and devotion. But we have to ask ourselves, is this just a flaw in our thinking, or is it a deeply ingrained habit rooted in our evolutionary psychology?
Part 1. The Psychology of Hero Worship.
Science actually recognizes two very distinct leadership styles. First, there's prestige, where people follow a leader because of their knowledge and skills. And then there's dominance, which relies entirely on fear and raw power. Our sources point out that especially during times of crisis, we are naturally drawn to dominant, powerful protectors. It's almost like an evolutionary glitch in our brains. We become totally willing to hand over everything to a dominant leader just to feel safe.
And this perfectly illustrates how our brains work, thanks to something called HADD, or the Hyperactive Agency Detection Device. To put it simply, back in prehistoric times, our brains learned that if something complex or mysterious was happening, there absolutely had to be some conscious agent or force behind it. Now, this instinct definitely saved us from predators back then, but it also hardwired us to see our leaders as ultimate protectors. To escape the terrifying reality of our own mortality, we turn these leaders into our existential anchors.
Part 2. Bhakti in Politics. In the Indian context, bhakti is fundamentally a concept of deep religious devotion. But as our sources explain, when this intense religious concept bleeds over into Indian political culture, it completely transforms citizens from rational voters into devoted followers. And when this kind of political devotion takes over, it's a real game changer. It almost always fuels nepotism, sycophancy, and a culture of absolutely unquestioning loyalty to a single leader. The crucial thing to remember here is that the framers of the Indian Constitution saw this danger coming from a mile away. Take a look at these historic words from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He explicitly warned that while bhakti and religion might be a path to the salvation of the soul, in politics, bhakti or hero worship is a guaranteed road to degradation and eventual dictatorship. It is a direct, literal threat to any democratic structure.
Part 3. Independence and Early Cults.
This timeline really says it all. The cult of personality in India isn't just tied to one specific political ideology. It spans the entire modern history of the nation, from Mahatma Gandhi to Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and right up to Narendra Modi today. Every single era has seen its own unique version of hero worship.
Let's start with Mahatma Gandhi. The source material notes that during the freedom struggle, Gandhi had a massive, unquestioning, cult-like following. In fact, leaders who didn't agree with his methods, like Subhash Chandra Bose, often ended up being sidelined. And what's really fascinating is that in early visual propaganda from the 1930s, Gandhi was quite literally depicted as the Hindu god Shiva protecting Mother India. So the deification of political figures, it started right here.
Now, look at this wild paradox. Back in 1937, Jawaharlal Nehru actually published an essay actively warning the public against dictatorships, emphasizing how absolutely vital it is to question leaders. But in total contrast to his own warnings, his party built a massive personality cult around him. This fostered an overarching culture of blindly trusting the state and the leadership, which became known as the Nehruvian consensus.
Part 4. Goddess Durga, Indira Gandhi.
India's victory in the 1971 Indo-Pak War was a huge turning point. The sources illustrate how a major military success acts as the ultimate catalyst for political deification. Almost overnight, an elected politician was elevated to the status of a fierce protective deity. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was quite literally hailed by many as a physical manifestation of the goddess Durga.
And the absolute peak of this mindset is captured in this famous quote. During the emergency period, the Congress Party president boldly declared, "India is Indira, Indira is India." This perfectly demonstrates how a personality cult completely erases the lines between an individual leader and the entire nation. The leader becomes the country, and the country becomes the leader. No questions asked.
Part 5. The Modern Cult, Narendra Modi.
This brings us to the present day, showing how the rhetoric of divine kingship is still actively used by political peers. In 2022, a prominent chief minister described the prime minister using words like superhuman and having traces of God in him. It's a stark reminder of how modern politicians are still elevated far above ordinary humans and presented as having supernatural qualities.
And the sources confirm this comes straight from the top, too. During the 2024 general elections, Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself stated in an interview that he believes his energy is not biological, but rather that he was sent by God for a specific purpose. Let that sink in. This is a highly relevant modern example of a leader directly linking themselves to divine origins and non-biological energy.
Sociologists identify some very specific documented strategies used to build and maintain this modern personality cult. We're talking about wearing a custom suit with his own name embroidered on it, resembling a Hindu Namavali, during a U.S. presidential visit, renaming the world's largest cricket stadium after himself, releasing a highly hagiographical biopic right before an election, and even campaign rhetoric claiming the deity Jagannath worships him. These are all calculated steps to sustain a political cult of personality.
Which brings us to our final and frankly most important question today. Can democracy survive when citizens transform from critical voters into devoted bots? History proves it, psychology backs it up, and we can see it happening right now. When we stop asking questions and start treating our politicians like gods, we are literally chipping away at our own democratic power. So the next time you head to the ballot box, ask yourself, are you electing a leader or are you worshiping a savior? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer.